How does a functional programmer see the class inheritance hierarchy? Hi, my name is Eric Normand, and these are my thoughts on functional programming. So in a language like Java that it's object-oriented, has a class hierarchy, where the class is also used in its type system to represent different types. You have this thing that often happens, which is that people will model their domain using the class hierarchy, and they'll do stuff like, so the class hierarchy represents is-a relationships, and then class members, instance members, so variables in the object, represent has-a relationships. And you can get pretty far with is-a and has-a. I'm not saying anything about that. But a functional programmer typically has a different perspective on this. I'll share my perspective on what's going on there and why we don't like doing that so much. All right, so imagine you have a spreadsheet. You work at a dog training company, and you take care of dogs, you train them, and so you have all these customers in a spreadsheet. There's a bunch of dogs, right? So you have something like the name of the dog, the time they first came into your service, their age, their weight, their height, their color, their fur color, and then you have something like the breed of the dog, because that's important for training dogs. Now, this spreadsheet is really useful. You can sort it in different ways. You can figure out what's the average amount of time it takes for a big dog to be trained versus a small dog. There's all sorts of answers to questions you can ask this data. And you can, because it's in a spreadsheet and it's very loosely structured, it's just the rows in a table. It could be in a SQL database. It doesn't matter, really. As long as all that data is still there. You can make pivot tables. You can do all that stuff you normally do with a spreadsheet. But what does an object-oriented person do? The first thing they do is they look through those columns and they say, wait a second, this breed of dog, the type of dog it is an is-a relationship. And so we're going to make a different class for each kind of dog. And they do this and then make a dog the superclass, or maybe an interface. And it'll have all these, all the data about a dog is going to be like, getters and setters on the class. Okay. So what is happening is they are a priori, without any use case, plucking one field out of this one column out of the spreadsheet and making it a static thing. Like, when I say static, I mean it is hard-coded. They are hard-coding, husky and bulldog and shih tzu and chihuahua and etc., and they're hard-coding those as subclasses when it would have been. And so okay, let me say it's lossy, right? You're plucking out one thing, turning it static when it used to be, dynamic, meaning you just read it in from the spreadsheet and you knew what it was. It was just a string. And you're turning it into something static, because in Java those classes are just part of the code. And now you're just doing that because it has an is-a relationship. And you're missing out on all the possible things you could have done when it was just data. Okay, when it was just data, you could do joins, you could do pivot tables, you could make it a drop-down box to select the different breeds. And you could have another spreadsheet that represented, like, say, the average weight of a certain breed when they're adult size, that kind of thing. And you could join those two tables together. Like, there's all sorts of stuff you could do. Now, it depends on your use case. I'm not saying you should go do all those things. You should look at the use cases. What do we actually need to do with this data? And I just find that in object-oriented programming, in this Java-style class hierarchy programming, not everyone's doing this, okay? I don't want any angry emails like, oh, that's a terrible way to do it. Why are you shaming object-oriented programming? I'm not doing that. I'm just saying, from my perspective as a functional programmer, what people do is they have a priori, before they've analyzed any kind of use cases, they pluck this one attribute out as somehow a static thing. There are some use cases where this would be useful, but in a lot of them it's not, and they have not proven that they have this use case before they do this. Okay, they just like the idea of creating an ontology where, like, a Shih Tzu is a dog, and a dog has a weight. That's not your job, right? Your job is to add features to this software, and the features you have to add are, like, generate a report for the owner about, like, how much money we're making, or how many dogs of this breed we've serviced and how many dogs of that breed. I mean, it's a totally different game. So a functional programmer just sees that as just another column, just another piece of data. And there's no need to create this is-a hierarchy. There are some times when is-a hierarchies are exactly what you want, where you want polymorphism, right? So as an example, like, you might have different date formats, and you want to say, well, these are all dates. I want to be able to treat them. I want to be able to convert all of these to, like, a Unix timestamp, and I don't really care what kind of date I have. I just want it to work. I don't want to have to write different code paths for every single, kind of date there is. I just want it to be polymorphically, give me the timestamp, and that's something that you have to do sometimes. But that is using a specific tool for a specific use case, because you don't actually have a table view of your data. Once it's in a table, man, you're good. You don't need, that is the modeling, right? I mean, a SQL database table, like, you have this amazing high-level language for doing all sorts of cool operations with it. To turn this into some kind of class hierarchy is almost criminal. There, I said it. It's like you're throwing away the power that you have. All right, my name is Eric Normand, and this was a thought on functional programming. If you agree, if you disagree, please let me know. I love getting into discussions with people. You can email me at eric@lispcast.com. You can also follow me on Twitter, where I share all sorts of these thoughts in more bite-sized form. You can follow me at Eric Normand. Also, I'm on LinkedIn if you want to get into that. Connect with me on LinkedIn at Eric Normand. I share stuff there too. Awesome. See you around.